Hello, everybody. Welcome to Plague Pals. I'm Bill Corbett, and with me is...
Maura Quint. Hi, everyone.
Hey,
Hope
everybody.
everybody's...
Mara, you're going to have to take this episode by yourself because I have been canceled.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Is that why I can't see you and you no longer exist?
Yeah, I'm basically a wraith that will fade over time in the course of this broadcast. I'll be doing that, Thanos Avengers
Sure.
Endgame kind of turning into crappy little ashes.
I was wondering what was happening. It was starting with your hair, right? Like that went first, and then it's just going to slowly
Oh,
dissolve down.
Mara,
That was
unkindly.
mean. That was mean. You should cancel me now.
Canceled.
Damn
Uh,
it. Yeah,
um,
cancel culture. It's the whole world right now.
it's all the
Especially,
rage.
it's what everybody's talking about.
Yeah.
And then canceling everyone for, especially with that letter. Did you read the Harper's magazine? A letter on justice and open debate. A very,
Yes, I
very
did
nice
read it
titled.
only after reading a million reactions to it, but mostly Twitter reactions. So it was basically like, fuck that,
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
figured I should go to the source material and give it a
That's how
look-see.
I get all my news. Twitter just starts going, fuck that. And then eventually I'm like, I guess I should figure out what it is they're talking
Pull
about.
that thread backwards. Like,
That's
okay,
exactly right. Like,
who's getting...
what's everyone mad about?
Right.
Okay, yeah, all right. I see now. I understand.
It
I
used to
had the
be you
same
would
thing.
turn on, like when I was a kid, you would turn on the TV news and watch Dan Rather or somebody
Sure.
recite. Now you go on a Twitter and you say, like, who's being called a cocksucker like today?
That's right. Yeah. Who fucked up in a really terrible way that we need to like all look at and point for a little while, which
Which,
I'm pretty sure that's what cancel culture is, right? Like if we all just
yeah,
point at somebody for a while, then
yeah,
we have magic and they're just canceled. They
yeah,
disappear. Do you believe cancel culture is a real thing?
I do not. I mean, yeah, like I can state it that plainly because we can get into the defining of terms of what it
Mm-hmm.
is, and then maybe there's some nuance to be explored there, but the use of cancel culture as a term to me indicates that the person is not serious, is not morally serious, is using a bad faith argument.
Right.
That's my knee jerk to it at this point. And the writers of this letter didn't use that term as far as I remember,
I don't think so. They were
but
more serious.
they're slightly more sophisticated than that, but not much. But
No.
it is basically the same extended whine in my
It
view.
was like they had a thesaurus for cancel culture. They didn't use those words, but if we just the erase society, or it's we picked some other more lofty words to fill in.
Disappearance land. No, it's so you read, can you summarize for those of us who did not, for those wise people who did not read the letter? And I will preface it by saying that I didn't expect much one way or another, that it would be a kind of like just very generic kind of statement. And
Yeah.
it was that, but it was also like, if you know any of these people and you kind of like know the cracks here, it's what's being omitted here, in my opinion. Anyway, I
No, I
asked
think
you and
that's
then I
exactly
answered it.
right.
I'm such a man. I apologize. I am
Canceled again. I
working.
don't. We're gonna see. We should like have a little board and just see how many times we can cancel you.
Bing, bing, just like, and then
Like, is
every
it a
10 you ring the big like dinner bell.
I was gonna say, is it baseball rules? Like you get 3 cancellations and then you're out of there. Like I'm not sure
Uh,
exactly how many you get to rack up, but what are we at, 2 or 3 for you now? I've been canceled
yeah, and
once.
it's only like minutes into the podcast, so like I am not going to survive this.
We're
So
gonna run this one right off the road. This is very
get your
exciting.
monologue ready.
Don't worry, I'm so prepared. I can monologue on this for a while. It'll be meandering. It'll sound like a Trump speech. It'll be
You
fantastic.
had me until that last part.
I
No, but
know. Or
do
Kanye.
please
Just
do
all over.
monologue on this for a bit because I'm interested.
No, the letter itself, I came about it the same way you did, with everybody saying, fuck this is ridiculous. So I actually then kind of went in thinking like, oh, it must be pretty bad. And then I read it and was like, okay, it's super broad, super vague, very, it's not so great when we can't all talk and say stuff. So we should all sort of, it has that kind of a ethereal tone of free speech-ishness and in journalism maybe, and it's very loftily worded, without ever really saying much of anything. And I know that people were really angry about the names, which certainly gives some context to it in terms of who signed on, because there's a weird mix and lots
really
of
weird, yeah,
really weird. But the letter itself to me actually was just sort of ridiculous. It seems to overall be like very upset that there might be consequences for your actions if you are someone who holds an important role. It's sort of like speaking loftily, and I know that I saw like a Steven Pinker say like, well, no, the point wasn't us, the point is for other people. But really they're only pointing to like academics and journalists. It's not that they're worried about the guys on the street in a Black Lives Matter rally not getting heard enough or being shouted. Like, they're not worried about those people in the slightest. They're not worried about even any real examples of freedom of speech issues, nothing that's actually like going near the constitutional world. One of the things they said was like, that the professors are being investigated for things they say in the classroom. Really like this broad language where it's like when you look into it, like, yeah, a professor said an N-word in a classroom and the faculty looked in to see what had happened. No consequences came for this. And he was referencing something and it was all very much fine. But the idea that he should be questioned at all is like, they're already over it. It's really, it seemed to me ultimately just a letter of like, how dare you? How dare you criticize me? How dare you question me? I don't you see that I'm important? I'm too important to be questioned. Being questioned is a direct attack on me, and I should not have to go through that. That's what this letter ultimately came down to me.
Could not agree more. Yeah.
Yeah. It was also, it's getting a ton of, pushback because the language, again, being really broad, it's either saying almost nothing, in which case, why did you sign on? Like, what's the point of this letter? It's either sort of saying nothing, or it's saying everything that the rest of us are seeing in it that's sort of left out. It's saying all of the transphobic coded wording and the racist coded wording within it, and the references are obliquely to people who suffered consequence for actually doing shitty things that they should suffer consequence for. So if that's the case, why are you sticking up for that? It's a really ridiculous thing. And also, another criticism I saw of it, see, you told me to monologue. Now you're never getting me back. Now you're done. Look, this is it. This is an hour.
Look, I like low effort, days as much.
You learned your lesson.
So if you want to take the show, I'm just going to drink my coffee and enjoy.
Oh, I'm jealous. I would like some coffee. But another criticism that I saw of the letter as a whole, I've completely lost my train of thought, but it was definitely something really interesting and important that will occur to me again.
Okay. I'll bet it will.
It absolutely will. But, my big takeaway is there are a lot of people right now who have been in somewhat protected positions. Their privilege has protected them, their roles in society, their actual jobs have protected them. And they're now getting some pushback. What that pushback actually is, I mean, there are times when people have been fired for something that was potentially an overreaction. Like, that has occurred. So you can point out an individual thing here or there and say, well, I don't know that that was necessarily right. But the reason that's happening is because we've had such the other side for so long, where you were
Mhm.
completely protected. You could say whatever racist bullshit you wanted. You could just absolutely be as offensive and shitty and terrible as you wanted to be with absolutely no consequences. That we're now having a pushback from that. And, you know, that
Mhm.
pendulum's going to swing a little bit, and it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to, like, everyone who faces any consequences isn't necessarily going to deserve it. It's true. But there's also no real way that I can see to, like, precision point other than us being nuanced and looking at individual cases and saying, like, hey, what's happening here, maybe this doesn't fall under the same things, or maybe they were quoting from a literary text and we
Mhm.
should recognize that context, or whatever. But to just generally say, like, well, I should never face any consequences at all and no
Yeah.
one should ever question me, is just bullshit. That's just like, okay, we get it. You want to, you know, go back to
Mhm.
a previous time when you could be a white male landowning whatever, and just get away with anything. I mean, that's,
Alexander Hamilton. No, sorry.
I
Just
haven't seen it. You
bringing
can
the
make up songs.
zeitgeist, bringing the zeitgeist together here. Um,
I don't know the musical. I'm the only one.
you got that's got to be your brand from here on out. The
Oh, it
person who
is.
has not seen Hamilton
Oh, I'm wearing
never
it
will.
like I don't even own a TV. No, like, just very. Yeah, I've never even seen Hamilton, but, you know, if that's what you enjoy, I read books.
Oh
I
my God, you're going hard in the paint with that
I
answer.
don't read books. I used to, but
I used to. There's a whole bunch of people, a bunch of us out there who are basically. I used to read books,
I
people.
know. It's,
Now
and
I
then Twitter happened and it erased books. It canceled books.
books are canceled.
Books have been canceled.
Um, I totally agree with everything you said. I think you said it really well. The frustrating part of this Harper's thing, and it's Harper's magazine. Like, it is a cultural artifact of the 20th century that I used to like the Harper's list. You know, if you remember
Mm-hmm.
that, I don't know if you remember. You know, just basically put statistics in
Right.
some kind of perspective that was amusing a lot of the time and often kind of revealing. Um, but it's, you know, it's not like it's going to have a huge impact outside of a fairly small slice of our culture. I think the reason it has it's the target on its back right now, besides the issues involved, which are the just like intersectionally very powerful, to use the intersectional word probably wrong again.
I'm not sure.
But the main thing is J.K. Rowling is a signatory, and she is, you know, she has been just cutting a wide swath across Twitter these days with her utterly baffling need to drive her brand into the ditch, you know, with transphobia cloaked
She's
in
standing up for
gentility.
women, Bill. That's what she's doing.
It is so weird. Just as a sidebar, there seem to be a lot of British people of a certain age
Yeah.
who that is the issue that really gets them wound up. I
Yeah,
mean,
I keep trying to, like, figure out what the source of that is, because it really does seem to be a very specific segment of, like, UK. And I it just, if anybody here is listening from the UK, can you tell us what the spark was? What's setting these people off like this? I feel like something must be happening
it
there
is
that we don't
weird
know
because
about.
it does seem to be proportionally a bigger thing there, stipulating, of course, that in America we have all of those things. Like
Oh yeah.
we have hysteria over everything, including that. But there
Hmm.
seems to be like this really, I don't know, these otherwise like hip, smart, cultural,
You're giving them too
successful.
much credit, but yes.
Yeah. Like her and the guy Glinner, Graham
Yeah.
Linehan, the
Yep.
you know, sitcom maker, who's, I don't know. I started out on Twitter kind of like going back and forth, jolly with Glinner because he seemed like a cool guy, and he's
Yeah.
related to Peter Serafinowicz, who is one of my favorite British comedian actors.
I didn't know that.
Um, but yeah, by I think in-laws or something. Anyway,
Okay.
without getting into the weeds about who these people are, it's like they're people who they're not like from the National Front.
Right.
They're like the equivalent of U.S. liberals who, like, when it comes
The
to the
Deborah Messings.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely lose their shit, you know, and like
Hmm.
need to like keep going at it and just, I don't get it.
That's the other thing that I find so utterly fascinating. I mean, like, not just that, wow, you're just fully wrong, you're transphobic, you're completely on the wrong side of history, and I don't know what you're doing, but like the overwhelming need to just drive that so far into the ground and to just never shut up about it, like it is the only thing they're thinking about and caring about. It's the only issue that is dominating their world, when uh, even if you hold these like terrible views, there's a lot of other things to care about too. Like there's, you'd think you'd sprinkle it in with your other, but
Yeah.
that's it. It's just, it completely takes over their entire world. And I am so confused by it. And I do feel like there is an explanation somewhere other than,
Hmm.
I mean, it could just be that they're terrible people,
It
sure.
might
But
it might be one of those weird cultural explanations that it's just sort of hard to trace in any meaningful
trans
or
people are demanding we don't call it fish and chips anymore. They want it to be, I don't know, fish and chop. I don't know.
careful,
I
careful.
don't know. I don't know.
You know,
I don't know what ridiculous thing they're reacting to.
but yeah, but it is a lot like, you know, the mask thing that we talked about last week in America being like,
Oh
this
yeah.
really isn't a big hairy deal elsewhere on
Right.
the planet. In fact, it's pretty standard in some Asian countries during flu season, you know.
Right.
Um, but here it's like we have just got ourselves so fucking wound up about it, thanks to some real bad actors at the top, you know, making
Mm-hmm.
sure that that gets out there. Anyway, I don't want to get into pandemics. We covered the pandemic last week. I think we
It's
solved
over.
that.
We're done with that. Yeah. No, that's
Check that off. Back to this
completely.
letter, though. I really don't think it you know has much of an impact in the real world one
No,
way or
you're
another.
right.
It's a pretty narrow bunch of people, but the way that they, and I have it right here, I'm not going to read a big excerpt from it, but they 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 started out, the first sentence is, our cultural institutions are facing a moment of trial. And then they sort of hand wave to Black Lives Matter and Trump being bad for the press and all that,
Nope.
without saying Black Lives Matter, of course, because that's a little too specific. And that is
Far.
my
Yeah.
frustration with it. And you just said this, Maura. I mean, it never gets specific about anything. You know,
Mm-mm.
even when they seem to be referring to something specific, it's just like, you know, they're using pronouns and they're using, you know, they're just slightly alluding to it.
Mm-hmm.
So lacking any rubber hits the road kind of specific things that gets down to cases here, it's just gibberish. I mean, and it's like
It really
academic
is.
gibberish,
It
the
really
worst
is.
kind, where you just like shovel more words at it, and you know, like the goal is to sound smart and noble, and
Right.
really does not, you know, that is the goal,
Yeah.
and they don't clear it. They don't sound smart, they don't sound like,
Mm-mm.
they don't sound noble. It sounds like a bunch of people with various agendas, and I know they don't, like, it's a pretty diverse list on one level in terms of just
Sure.
like they occupy different parts of the spectrum
Mm-hmm.
politically, but they are all people who have like successful cultural perches, some of them extremely well paid, some of them like
Right.
obscenely well paid, like the fact that
Right.
David Brooks decades later, and he's one of the signatories, gets paid anything more than $10 a column, you
I
know,
know.
like after this, after decades of writing the same, you know, just stupid self-congratulatory shit after all these years. Like, he is the luckiest man in the world, outside of besides the other Times column, like Barry Weiss, who I
Right.
know is like, you know, the new version of David Brooks on some level, because
Mm-hmm.
a lot of she travels in that New York cultural elite world and hobnobs with
That
the,
she decries
that
at the
she
same time.
decries. Yeah,
Yep.
oh, I want to see some of you people move to Tulsa. Put your money where your mouth
I
is, or
know.
some, you
You're in
know,
Minnesota, I'm in Pennsylvania, but like they're the
I'm
ones
the
who
elite,
are
right?
that's right. You and I are the elites.
These people who make high six figures for, you know, typing out 2 shitty columns a week, and
Yeah.
then occasionally do books titled like The Patio Culture or something like, I mean, that was literally a character in the Tom Friedman early 90s. He had a bunch of books about
Yeah.
average Americans, and one of the characters was Patio Man, the
Sure.
guy who has a patio and grills and goes to Applebee's salad bar. And then people pointed out, buddy, there is no salad bar at Applebee's. Like, all your purported research for the book is pulled out of your ass. You made it up. And so he started denouncing. And that's when they become the Wicked Witch of the West melting. It's like, how dare you? And
That's
that's what
right.
the whole fucking letter reads like to me. It's like, and you
That's
said
right.
it before, how dare you speak back to me in this marketplace of ideas? I am the marketplace of ideas. There is no give and take here.
That's my favorite.
A lot
Marketplace
of
of
it has to do with
ideas.
social media. You know, some of these
Oh
people have
yeah.
been talked back to. And I think it is a weird, um, it's such a solipsistic focus on their own world. They've got a good gig going. They've got a good
Mm-hmm.
racket going.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, not every single one of these people are saying, but it's enough of a critical mass to say this. They have comfortable places to spout their opinions without a lot of consequence. So their lack of specificity really just makes their case into mush,
It
because
really does. Yeah.
you know that there are opinions that you would never print in your magazine. Don't
Oh yeah.
fucking pretend otherwise. We're just talking about which ones, and you don't even hand wave to the fact that
Oh yeah.
nobody in this country, because of right to work laws, some of which were passed with encouragement with people like David Brooks on board, you know,
Mm-hmm.
don't protect anybody's speech in their workplace, you
Right.
know. And these are people who work at, you know, I don't know, Chick-fil-A or Walgreens or whatever. You know, you do not have that right.
That's the big thing too that kills me. Like if that's your concern, if you are afraid that people are being fired, if that's what you mean by cancel culture, well then shouldn't you be spending all your time investing in the strengthening of unions? Like shouldn't that be what you're actually doing rather than writing these sort of oh, I'm going to sign my name to a letter in Harper's, which, as you said, has like no audience. I mean, who is going to see that? The only people who are going to see it are your hopeful academic peers who you were expecting to say, oh, that is strong and you are smart and good. That's what they expected from this.
Yeah.
Just like, you know,
You're
to get a
both.
couple of.
How did you become both of those things? That's really quite an achievement.
That's right. That's right.
You deserve a column for life. Very well paid.
That's exactly it. That's what they were thinking was going to happen, which is also, I think, the only real outcome that this letter, because it's not going to influence anybody, the only real outcome from this letter is a handful of people are going to learn to read things a little bit more clearly before they put their name at the end. That's the big outcome. Like a few people are going to be like, oh, I guess I should stop and think sometimes. That's it. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that they have done of consequence is remind themselves, don't just jump on, like, which is funny to me. But you said the marketplace of ideas. So that phrase kills me because they trot it out all the time. It's constantly like, and this letter also, I don't think it says marketplace of ideas, but it does say that views need to be expressed and discussed and you know, so it's the same sort of
They even
thing.
sort of alluded to the fact that, you know, instead of vigorously debated, they said something like caustically debated. Like they are trying to inoculate themselves against the fact that they're big old snowflakes.
Well, that's right, and that's what's the funniest thing to me is they're the ones always saying these ideas need to be out there, and then the people will decide. And then every time the people decide, they're like, "But you get not against me? No, that's not what I meant." I mean, that's what cancel culture is. It's the marketplace of ideas deciding your ideas suck, and that's what they're constantly saying. But they want to be in charge. They want like a oligarchical control of ideas. They don't want a free marketplace of ideas. They want to be the ones completely in charge. They want a monopoly on whose ideas get put forth and whose don't, and no one can say anything against them because they're the ones in charge. but actually just putting their ideas out there, that's what they keep doing and what they keep getting canceled for and why they keep getting mad. You can't have both. Pick a side.
Exactly. Well, they want to be the marketplace of ideas, and they want to put limits on entry to that marketplace, and
Mm-hmm.
that's why you saying oligarchs is really apt here, or monopolists of ideas, something
Monopolies.
like that. Um, but they also want to define the boundaries of those ideas, like,
Right.
and they're not exactly sure where they are, but it certainly doesn't involve speaking back to them and calling them dipshits, like,
Absolutely
come
not.
on. I think we have all lived, you certainly as a woman who has ideas on the internet have lived through it worse than um, probably most of these people, because you're out there more undefended by any kind of institution. We all get called bad, nasty shit, and we get stuff thrown at us,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Well,
Uh,
I mean, I know I have I've been through moments of being canceled, I suppose, like if that's what you want to use. I mean, and I think you have as well. You've certainly had that experience. I know, I mean, the one that comes to mind is I made a joke during the Ghostbusters reboot about how and I
the red hot cultural issue of the
really
decade.
important. But I made a joke about how this new Ghostbusters was just going to be a bunch of women pointing and laughing at men's dicks, and it was, that was it. And I got a lot of response from the trans community who were very upset with me
Ah,
because not all men have dicks, which was fair. Uh, and the way that I was phrasing it was from a like misogynist viewpoint. So I didn't think a misogynist would take that into account, so it was a complicated thing. Um, but I had there was a lot of people online very angry at me, very like going all in on, on deciding who I was as a person. And that sucked. Uh, and an interesting thing that I did was talk to a bunch of them and hear what they were saying and learn that, like, all right, when I use that sort of phrasing, that's problematic for some people and that's going to hurt some people, and I should be more thoughtful about whether or not I'm talking about a cisgendered person or not, and I should just alter my words a little bit going forward so that I am inclusive in that way.
mhm.
And I'm still here. I don't know, I still exist, but
No, I'm not seeing you.
I think, I
They-
don't know. It seems like I'm here.
I'm doing a video cast alone suddenly.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
it sucked. It did suck, and I was, of course, like, you have all of the normal human emotions of feeling like defensive and like, but that's not,
mhm.
But you also have a choice. Like, are you going to respond and lash out and be an asshole, or are you going to
Yeah,
be like, wow, maybe if people are angry at me, they're hurt, and I should like think about why they're hurt,
yeah.
and maybe I should try to take that perspective and weigh it and consider it. And that doesn't mean fully give in. I still think the way my joke was phrasing, that's the way the joke probably should have been phrased for the joke. But do I need
Mhm.
to make that joke? Do I, like, it was a broader thoughtfulness.
Yeah,
Um, and I know you've had experiences too.
yeah.
What have you gone through?
Well, I don't feel like I've gone through anything like,
Yeah, I
and I
know.
know what you.
Saying that was, yeah.
But when I said, like, and I'll get back to how I have fucked up in a second, but I was really introducing like the sort of feedback you get from trolls.
Oh,
We
sure.
call them trolls, but they're just, it could be anywhere from like rude feedback on something you said, or real or actual polite feedback, I don't know, to like death and rape threats. I am sure you have seen all of those in your time.
Yeah, the thing is when I was thinking about like these people and what they're talking about when they are talking about cancel culture, and so much of it is getting just Twitter attacked and stuff like that. And I don't know that this is true of everybody, but and the reason I went to the example that I did is because when I get swarmed by MAGA people all the time calling me whatever the hell they want to call me in that moment. Like, some days I'm, ugly slut. Other days I'm a bad mom. Some days I couldn't possibly ever have sex. Like, it's usually sexual, but it goes the gamut,
Mm-hmm.
of that sort of thing. That's easier to just ignore because I don't really care what those people think. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't really affect me, and I can block and, and all of that. And I feel like in general, a lot of us get a little desensitized to some sorts of attacks, not
Yeah.
everyone. But I think that part of the problem and part of the reason why there's a group of people get so upset with cancel culture is because it's different when it's coming from people that whose respect you do want.
Mm-hmm.
And then it feels much more personal. And so when it was people in the trans community responding to me,
Mm-hmm.
that mattered to me more because I'm not I'm not transphobic, and I didn't want to be perceived that way. And it was more personal than the millions of attacks I get from MAGA people. I don't give a,
Mm-hmm.
who cares? And I think that there is a lot of that happening with these people with cancel culture because there are people who they view as their peers that are criticizing them,
Yeah.
or that think they're their peers, or that they're like in the world of, and then they feel much more personal and much more like defensive and angry, because I think they're all batting down tons. Like, they're all getting attacked by QAnon people all the time. We all are, like, but they're not complaining about that. That's not what this letter is. Not like someone should get those QAnon people in check and stop flooding my.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what this is about, and that's not what they're responding to.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I was like kind of using that specific example.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely different there's a difference in the way people come at you just in a trolly way or a QAnon or an obviously like so far out in left field. But I think those degrees of difference aren't always clear to some of these elite people, like the
True.
fact that and sometimes there are great arguments that are extremely disrespectful. Like leftists have had it in this country in trying to convince anybody. They're just going to say, I'm going to make you eat shit because of your terrible argument.
Yeah.
And part of me is kind of on board with that. It's like, this is how much respect I have for you and your racket.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that gets to them. But
Yeah.
I think the thing that really obviously gets to them the most is any attempt to knock you off your perch in terms of um, elite status and
Mm-hmm.
especially financial status, like losing a job, losing a cultural credit. So yeah, it is a different quality than somebody coming at me last week, which happened, and it was like a picture of my wife being goofy, Virginia being goofy on Instagram. Basically wrote me a little mini essay about how he can't enjoy my humor anymore because I have so much hate in me. It's like, first of all, good timing and good good response.
Okay.
Um, and I see that this is somebody who like actually did back riff tracks,
Oh wow.
a Kickstarter and all that. But he has decided that I am so hateful. I have so much hate in me, which he has discerned
I
that he
see.
cannot enjoy my humor
Well,
anymore. And
maybe he's a Jedi and he has that sort of force feel, and senses the
how do you
darkness
respond to
growing.
that? Like he's just like, I don't have hate in me, you motherfucker. Um,
Come over here so I can tell you to your
I will
face.
fucking slap that assertion right out of your face. Um, yeah, so it doesn't. There's no real defense against that. I mean, but that is a
I
different
will hug
thing.
it out of you.
That's really annoying and
Yeah,
puzzling to me. I
that is.
I know where it comes from. It's a political or social difference, and they have internalized it, and in their
Mm-hmm.
parasocial relationship way, they have decided to take it extremely personally. In fact, the hashtag was like Crow was my favorite. It's like I ruined this character. Uh, and
Right.
then other people chime in is like, no, I like that. And neither is like, I don't need either one. Like, thanks anyway.
But
Um,
no, that's curious to me too, though, because I don't know. you get this probably far more. You're much more of a public figure than I am at all. So I get the like being a woman, so you just get run with hate. But you are a cultural icon, so you embody something that people really value, and so I
suckers. Don't.
no, but
We'll edit that part out.
right, all the posts we do, definitely. When I get like someone, because I've gotten that sort of thing to me, not obviously as broad, but my reaction, like my first reaction is always like, it actually does ding me. It actually like, I actually get kind of sad for a moment or hurt,
Yeah.
or like I can't really divorce that emotional feeling from it. And then I have to like remind myself that everyone is going through their own shit, and what they're putting at you is not necessarily indicative of anything that you're even doing, if it's, you know, something very personal like that. And
Yeah.
it could be many other things. And I would think you'd have to go through that a lot, actually, because I would feel like that would be something you would be hearing.
Well, I think there's nothing more toxic in a way than somebody like, you know, somebody coming at you from and asserting a kind of white male dominance thing. I'm trying to put this in the best way, but like as a woman, as a Black person, as a trans person, like somebody going hard at that completely out of context, it feels like the most toxic thing. And then there's, you know, adjacent things like you hate America and all that. And it's like, I don't, you know, not, that doesn't faze me anymore, because consider the source. But like someone who is going right for your core identity and deciding that you know, you need to be fucking shamed and degraded based on that is probably the most toxic. But it's not, also, once again, it's not what these people are talking about. They would probably say that's not good either, but they are worried about themselves.
That's right.
They're worried about themselves and their ability to, like, you know,
go after other people's core identities.
Yes. I mean, and it is such a weird limb to go out on for so many of these people. And I think you're right. Some of them didn't fucking read it, or were very careless and raised, that looks anodyne enough.
Chomsky's on it. That's cool.
Blah.
I'm going to be next to him.
Yeah, but without any specifics. It is anywhere from meaningless, but it, like I said before, the omission, it is a sin of omission, because they don't give any kind of specifics to bolster it. And I might concede that somebody got canceled unfairly if I ever heard a case where I really thought that was true, but I have not yet. I mean, have you?
The only thing I can even think to point to, which, you know, is, if you remember, like back in the early days of Twitter, there was a young woman who was flying to
Justine
Africa.
Sacco. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, and she made that joke of like, I'm going to Africa, I think, hope I don't catch AIDS, oh, never mind, I'm white. Something like that. And she did not have a very big Twitter account, to my knowledge, and she was making a joke for her friends, and my understanding is she's African, and she was actually mocking her own white privilege. I mean, from the things I've heard since. And, you know, that's not to say that she shouldn't be questioned, or that joke shouldn't be questioned, but I believe that she suffered a lot of conflict. She got fired immediately. I don't know what else happened, but I know that it followed her in a way that seemed disproportionate towards the context of that statement.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can think of.
All right, I can address that one, because
then I might not even be right. So yeah.
Well, you're mostly right, but there's an English writer, John Ronson. Do you know who he is? It's sort of like gonzo journalist isn't quite right, but he wrote The Men Who Stare at Goats. Like, he likes these sort of over to one side, kind of odd subjects to delve into. Kind of what's the word? I'm thinking of the public radio show with Ira Glass. That sort of
This American Life.
This American Life, which I think he's even been on.
That makes sense. That's probably
But
where I've heard him.
yeah, and he likes to do these deep dives into things, and he wrote a book called "So You've Been Publicly Shamed,"
Right.
and that is one of Justine Sacco, that young woman you were talking about, is one
Mm-hmm.
of his like main test cases or
Mm-hmm.
presentations. And I guess I could say, yeah, she probably got hit too hard. It just was a weird, it was a weird
It was.
Twitter thing, because everyone was aware that she was on a flight that was a long flight. She tweeted it right before she got on the flight.
Uh-huh.
And then it was like USA to somewhere in Africa, some city in Africa. Um, and so she didn't have access apparently. So it was like hashtag has Justine landed yet?
Yeah.
And then shortly after that, she, obviously she came off and was like, holy shit, what happened? The whole world knows about that bad
Right.
joke. But and she did get let go. But I'm like, I read the thing that Ronson
Okay.
wrote, and she did apologize for one thing. She got it. It was just a really flat-footed attempt at a joke from that happens every day on Twitter. People are just
Yep.
like, you are doing irony and you don't have control of it. And I have done that too. And I'm a professional. Like, I do something for a certain audience I think is going to get the point of view here that I am
Yeah.
playing a character, but it just reads like the thing itself. And
Right.
so that was one of her problems right there. But she
Mm-hmm.
apologized. She was fired. She got another job immediately with a pretty good place. She is now back working for the original place.
Okay, so there you go. Never mind. My
And
my
probably helps that
one
she is
person.
like an attractive young white woman. I'm not sure if she's South African or American or,
I'm not sure.
um, but she is also a PR professional. So good job there. But I mean, but I think there was like a lot of sympathy from the professional class for her.
Oh, sure.
And again, nobody is extending that to the Jimmy John's worker.
No. No.
So that's where I just start to feel like, fuck all you people. Like,
Oh,
just
yeah.
there are big waves of misery crashing over a lot of America
Right.
most years, and this year and this month in particular. And this is what you are fixated on.
Yeah, and when you asked, I want to be clarify as well. I didn't have any sympathy for her, and I
No,
still
no,
don't necessarily. I
yeah,
was just trying to think of someone like, did they fall
yeah,
in the
might have
world
been
of
an overreaction.
actual like maybe, but no. I mean, like, yeah, and I'm not surprised to find out she's
Well,
fine.
like that. I do feel like I have limits to what I want to have to people, like that horrible, like one of the original Karens from earlier, like a whole month ago, the woman who was
Amy
calling the
Cooper,
cops, Amy Cooper, in the news because she's been charged.
right?
Um, I don't think she should be put into the criminal justice system. That to me is like, that is too far. She's lost her job. She's been shamed. Even the guy who was filming her said, no, come on,
Right.
like, don't do that.
Yeah, he's come out
Um,
and said that he does not want that. I mean, that makes sense to not want that at this moment as well, because we are reevaluating the criminal justice system. So,
yeah,
you
like,
you want to you can't really do both.
no.
So, I mean, I agree. I think we want to limit the amount of people going into the criminal justice system.
Yeah,
And
as it
so,
is now, you just don't send people there casually or at
no,
all.
no,
I want to make sure that before we end that I tell my cancellation stories. My
yes,
main one on Twitter was, I wish I had looked beforehand, but I want to say it was almost 10 years ago, because I know my son was
Twitter
really
existed
young.
then.
What's that?
Twitter existed then.
Twitter existed then.
We've
Yeah,
been on Twitter for a decade.
better part of my son's life. But he was really young then, and this is the context of it. It also shows me how much I have learned in the last
Sure.
10 years, because it shocks me now that I would come out so casually with this. He had some sort of Transformers doll. You can see where this is going. Uh, and he named it Tranny. And I made a joke about it. I wish I could remember, but it wasn't intended to be a slur. And
Right.
here's how little I knew then. And it was like, I was over 40 years old. It's not like, I had just graduated college with this. Like, I didn't know that I didn't know that
There,
that term was really, really frowned upon.
I didn't either.
Um, and that there is a big, and I was confusing, um, like transsexual and transvestite, which is
Right.
not cool either. So I got a deluge of stuff, saying, and it was like a lot of the early
Wow.
Tumblr
Yeah.
posters who were really emotional and really big, but young people kind of sticking up for themselves, no nuance whatsoever, just saying Bill Corbett can go fuck himself, blah blah blah,
Right.
like no holds barred.
Hmm.
And my knee jerk, and I posted a kind of snotty apology at first, on Tumblr, and then
Ooh, on
when that
Tumblr.
understandably like
That didn't work
doubled
out for you?
doubled the
No?
reaction,
Hmm.
I finally talked like you did. I talked to some people and said, is it me or are the children wrong? I did the Principal Skinner thing.
Right.
And luckily I had the sense to listen to some of them. Um, and I still think to this day, like, yeah, they came at me a little hard for a
I'm sure they did.
dumb,
Yeah.
ignorant joke, but I made it worse. And I didn't know enough. And now I do. And, like, I have not been canceled. Like I wrote,
Right.
and I did write an apology, and, I don't think I gave anything part of me away, like that was valuable. I
Right.
did have people come, like other people come up to me afterwards, like, what the fuck did you do that for? You let them win.
Oh,
Like,
interesting.
so there's that too. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't think like anybody won
Those
particular.
people all signed the Harper's letter.
They're not important enough.
I'm canceled by not being asked to sign that letter. I
That's
should have had
right.
the opportunity to turn it down, but I didn't get that. Did you?
Yeah, you can go like in the marketplace of ideas. How come I don't have like a $500,000 a year sinecure at the Times? My free speech rights are being suppressed.
Every day that the
I
New York
can write
Times
better
isn't
than Bret
paying me
Stephens. I can write.
$20,000 to scribble whatever I thought in the shower is a day that I am being canceled, and it shouldn't stand.
I should have Bret Stephens' job. You should have Barry Weiss's job. This is bullshit. The fact that we are not getting paid their money for 10% more work than they would ever do.
I put more work into composing a tweet than David Brooks has ever put into a column.
They're literally just, like that's their work day. It's just so lazy, quite
It's
aside
so
from whatever they do.
lazy. It's so incredibly lazy. That's what kills me the most is just how lazy they've been allowed to be. No one has ever
Yeah.
told
Well,
them that no, you should probably follow through a logical point. You should maybe, do you have that argument isn't an argument. You're just
right.
saying what you feel. That doesn't, no, they've
You're
never
in your
once.
you're in your fields again, aren't you? Well,
People were attacking Tumblr posts far more, like
yes,
with far more stridency than they were ever caring to look at a David Brooks piece.
exactly.
And they were very
Well, and
similar
I
posts.
will add that like every day you see a Twitter thread or two, like
Oh
if you're
yeah.
spending too much time on it, like some people, that is a far better New York Times opinion column than anything they have on there. Like has done more work, has more expertise, has more salient,
Mm-hmm.
worthwhile perspectives and opinion. These people are just generic take makers. And the New York Times has been getting feedback on that for so long about specific people that is obviously baked
Oh,
into their culture. It's
it
like,
takes a
no,
long time to cancel someone, you know? It takes like 10, 20, 50, 100 years or so eventually. But
they,
eventually.
oh man, this could have gone so many further places, and maybe we
I
should
have
do a
like
part.
notes. I still have like 5 different
Yeah. Well,
points.
let's do part two on this,
We
and
should do
maybe
part two.
hopefully people will hang in there with us because it gets into all kinds of other stuff like the statues, the fucking statues, and
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of other stuff about what it means to be canceled, outside of the world of cultural institutions and academia and people who think they're smarty pantses.
That's
Like,
right.
you know, when you're getting into the world of comedians, which we all love to obsess on, like Louis C.K. canceled? I don't think so.
Pretty sure his last couple of shows sold out.
Yep. Like, so some of what they're saying isn't even true. It's like they canceled and they can't make their living doing it. No, they are.
Oh yeah.
And and you people like you are rallying around them and they're doing fine. In fact, some people are making a killing off of professional victimhood about this stuff.
Oh,
And that is
absolutely.
absolutely their fucking brand.
A lot of people are. That's
Yeah.
like that is a very driving focus for so many of these people. And if they lose that ability to say that they are being attacked, they become irrelevant. So it's in
Yeah.
their interest to like keep it front of mind all the
Fox
time.
News is basically one big constant victim whine
Oh
for a
God.
certain aging white cohort of this country. That is its sole function, is to keep them thinking
Yeah.
you are being done wrong here by these bad people. You're the real victim. We're here for you. And
Sure, fake victimhood feels great because you don't actually have to go through any of the real
I've
stuff that you
tried
would
it.
have to
I
deal with.
liked it.
It's lovely. It's like, wow, I get all of the benefits of not having to suffer anything. And
Yeah,
then I have to demand that everyone feel bad for me and treat me better. Like,
exactly right.
what's wrong with that? Who wouldn't want that? It's ridiculous.
Gonna hang out in my shingle. Professional victim. I really do
TV.
feel like I could, on a dime, do a heel turn like in wrestling and start doing that. And I would have enough people to kind of come with me on that, which is terrifying. Like, I could
Yeah.
start appealing
Oh, yeah.
to my age and whiteness and start going, like, I used to be a leftist, but now I'm realizing this. And
There's so much money in it.
that's what
There's
part of me
so
thinks, like,
much money in
why
it.
don't I just tap? If I could do a double reverse heel turn and somehow like take all their money and then go yeah 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 boo boo, you know, like at some point
Yeah.
I'm
That
tempted.
that's I've thought about it a lot. Like how do you do that? But it's like it's a scam, but you make sure everybody knows over here that you're doing a scam and you're just
Right.
going to take the like but I can't figure out a way to make it
Yeah,
work. But
it's dizzying.
there's a tremendous amount of profit to be had there.
Ka-ching.
Yeah. It's huge. So
Um,
you completely aside because we have to end this
yeah.
soon. You are doing something really actually very interesting that should not be canceled, but rather celebrated this weekend, right?
Yeah, I am part of a series of 10 short plays that are going to be done on the internet, which we're on right now, as it turns
Wow.
out. This was a project started by a theater director in LA named Casey Stengel. That is her real name. Casey is a nickname, of course, based on, it just took. Anyway,
Okay. All right.
she
Why was
is,
I supposed to doubt that that was a real name, though, is what I want to
oh,
know.
do you not know Casey Stengel, the baseball legend? Okay, I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, I don't.
Some age gap stuff happening here, but also maybe baseball fandom stuff. He was sort of a legendary baseball coach. Anyway,
Well, now I know.
another edit needed here. Um, but Casey put together she's calling it the Radio Round, and it's based on an old play from like 19th century. I think it's a German writer called La Ronde,
Okay.
which
That sounds
has,
French.
I
Sorry.
think that, no, you're right. That is the translation, and the German name is something else. But I think it got popularly more known as La Ronde because
Okay.
even the English version of it used that title.
Got it.
I don't know enough is the real fact
I'll
here.
stop cutting you off with my
That's
random.
all right. Pitch in. No, you're right. Like if it's a German writer who wrote Sacre Bleu, Jacques, like that's not German. But La Ronde is a bunch of two-character scenes, and it starts out with just like two characters talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
One of those two characters moves on to another scene with a third character, and then that third character moves on to another scene, leaving both of them behind. And
It's
so
like
it
the
basically,
exquisite corpse of a play.
it is exactly right. I mean, I don't really know what that means, but one of my fellow writers described it exactly like you did. What does that mean?
Exquisite Corpse is a game that the gosh, I'm going to get the group wrong, but artists would do, surrealists generally would do, where it started as a visual, like a drawing. So someone would draw one part, and then you pass it to the next person. They'd only see the last part that was drawn, and
Oh,
then
cool.
keeps passed around, and then you end up with something that is this weird visual. And then people did it. The Exquisite Corpse, I think, came out of poems being done like that, where you only see the line that was written above you, and then you pass it on to the next person, and they only see the line that you've written. So it's like a artistic game of telephone, kind of.
Yeah, that's exactly what this is.
That sounds awesome.
And then the last writer has to sort of, I think this is true, has to like
Wrap it
use
all up.
the what's that?
Wrap it all up.
Yeah, well, it has to like use the first character from the first one who was left behind, and then bring that together. Um, so yeah, it's really
That
fun.
sounds awesome.
It's pretty risky. They're supposed to be like 5-minute scenes each, so it's not that long.
Mm-hmm.
And I am doing it with, if you don't mind me reading some names.
Tell me.
Some of these will not be meaningful to non-theater people, but I am
Will they be
writing.
meaningful to baseball fans? Is what I want to know.
No.
Okay.
Lauren Gunderson, Kimberly, Aaron Loeb, Jennifer Maisel, Ren Dara Santiago, Madhuri Shekhar, Charlie Evan Simpson, James Anthony Tyler, and Anna Ziegler. I am only one of 3 dudes writing, and I am the oldest and whitest, as I am in many situations these days. But the cast is really cool, and again, these will be meaningful in different ways to different people. Betsy Brandt, she was she was on Breaking Bad. She played Hank's wife, if you know that show, Hank the DA.
Not well, but
Amin, Jessica Francis Dukes, who is on Ozark, the show Ozark.
Mm-hmm.
Eileen Fogarty, Ray Seahorn, who was in my play Hate Mail,
she was great.
Better Call Saul. Debbie Allen from Fame.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a name I know.
Yeah. Alana Raquel Bowers. So many of these people are like solidly in stuff that I had just not seen. They are bigger celebrities than I would ever hope to be. But like
you're canceling them by not knowing their biography.
James Urbaniak, who is the voice of Dr. Venture on The Venture Brothers, among other things. Very funny on Twitter. He's in my play. Melissa Peterman, who has been in a bunch of stuff, bunch of sitcoms. Fans of the movie Fargo might know her as one of the 2 girls in the bar, but she's been on a bunch of sitcoms and stuff since, and I know her pretty well. Ren Dara Santiago and Phil Lamar, who is with Futurama, Mad TV.
Oh, yeah, I knew that name.
It is a really cool cast, and it's a big undertaking. I'm glad I'm not in charge of it. I just had to write something for it. But I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, it is this Sunday. You can check my Twitter account for more specific.
What time is it? Is it going live, or do you like?
It is going live, and I want to make sure I get this right. I think it is. Okay, it's 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. So not the best time, maybe, for Pacific.
That's okay. Do it before dinner.
Yeah, a little aperitif.
That's right.
Wait,
have a cocktail.
Aperitif is afterwards. An appetizer, and a amuse bouche.
There you are.
I don't
French
know.
Too.
I don't know. No, that's German. I don't know if it'll be saved afterwards for viewing at this point. So show up Sunday, and it is a benefit for Black Lives Matter and Feeding America.
Even better.
Your money goes to a good cause. So please
awesome.
Check it out.
So the tickets we can get through your Twitter page, yes?
Yeah, there'll be a link in there. I have my pinned tweet.
I'll share it as well, but
Bless
great.
You. That's cool.
Absolutely. That'll be fun.
Oh, I'm showing you the ugliest part of my this door that had like.
Oh.
It used to have like this cork board on it, and that's all like the tape that was holding stuff.
I thought it might be sort of like an abstract modernist painting.
No,
actually.
Nothing so culturally classy as that. It's just tape that I
you can
can't
pretend.
get off. I gotta
We could call it, if we just give it a good name, and I don't know if we want to go with a German or a French title, but one of those.
I think
And then
we
we
should
call it
give it a French
Sotheby's.
title and insist that it is
And
German.
it,
And that's part of
that
the art
alone,
piece.
that alone is
Unch.
that's it. That's $100,000 you got on your wall there. That's
Very
fantastic.
Dadaist. But
I'm
by the
sure it
way,
is.
just before we go, do you have a art background or a past, like a knowledge of art history? It
My
felt like you
mother,
did there.
my mother is, well, my mother,
Who we met last
who
episode.
we met last episode, she is an artist. If she were standing here, she would be yelling at me for saying that because she's not an artist. But she is an artist. She like went to school for art. She was an art teacher for a long time, and she paints and sculpts and does all sorts of things
That's
like
an
that. So
artist.
that's an artist.
Sorry, Mom.
But yeah, I know she doesn't sell any of her work. So that's where she's like, therefore, she's not an artist because she's not trying to live off of being, I don't know, whatever. She
That
fucked up my
generation,
head with
man.
like what it means to be a creative person. I screwed me up for
Yeah.
decades. But anyway, yeah, I grew up in a house where she really valued art, and she had all of her college art books like around. So I would flip through because it was before the internet, and I would just want to be reading stuff. So I always liked going through that. That's my extent of my art background because I can't create art, but I can name a couple of artists.
No,
every now and again.
you pulled up Exquisite Corpse pretty quickly there, and I found that interesting.
Well, I'm very smart.
You're very smart.
I should really have been on that Harper's letter, or at least in a
on the Harper
subsection
letter.
saying Maura Quint was asked and refused to sign. Like that's just should have been right there. I'm actually curious to know, is there a list of people who said, no, don't put me on this? Like there must have been some people they asked that said no, right?
Did anybody read that shit? I mean, even if you don't find it offensive, and I don't know that I find it offensive, just so like absolutely clueless and entitled, and maybe offensive on that level. But
well, right.
There
has to be someone like who has been really focused in other work who's just like, I don't want my name on this because this is not what we should be talking about right now.
Or Noam Chomsky, who's 180 years old. It's just like,
somebody said, oh, I saw someone say like Noam Chomsky, he knows it because he's been canceled several times already. And someone else responded like, then he hasn't been canceled. If you can be canceled multiple times, you've never been canceled. Like, that's not a thing. You can't keep dying. Like, that's not how it works.
Right. If you're canceled, we should never see you again.
That should be that.
You should literally cease to exist.
There's plenty of
Thanos, baby.
There's a lot of 90s C celebrities that, like, for all intents and purposes, have been canceled because who knows what happened to them.
They aged.
Even, like, Entertainment Weekly can't track
That's the real cancellation.
That is the real cancellation. Becoming a middle-aged woman is like, that's it, you're canceled.
Yep.
That makes sense. Anyway.
Well, on that cheery note, I'm happy to continue this vague topic next week. We'll see if people are interested, but
yeah,
I kind of am, because I think there's like, it's such a blunt instrument at this point.
Yeah.
The phrase is absolutely, the phrase used either mockingly or seriously, I think has really become a good cultural barometer of where we are and how unserious we are about some things while being very whiny about others,
yeah, no, there's a lot there. It's a really big subject matter, and we just zeroed in here on one little bit of it. So yeah, no, there's more for me to say, certainly. I can monologue some more.
Yeah, let's just count on that. I am going to introduce you next week. You can just like get your podium ready and
absolutely. I'm gonna
give a little TED talk.
I've got one. I'll get like a little lapel mic. I'll dress all in black and I'll pace. So make it. But
only within that circle. That's the
rule. Right. I'm gonna study them. I'll be ready.
All right, Maura. I mentioned this on Twitter for those of you who are interested. We're soon going to have like a just audio version of this, so you can listen to it podcast style. There's a couple of questions to answer, including, do we start a Patreon for it? And because that will mean I need a producer to work with me. because I can't do it by myself.
And I can't help.
But we'll see. We'll see, and I'll keep you informed, and we'll see if there's interest. And if there's not, we'll just keep doing this.
Yeah.
All right. Maura, don't get canceled before next week, please.
I'll do my best. You also try. Lock yourself somewhere in a room.
Tread carefully. Walk on eggshells.
I've got some, wrapping I'm going to put around myself and be really, really cautious.
Don't say anything. Unless there's a big issue that comes out that requires you break your silence, then get it.
Obviously. Obviously. Understood.
All right. Keep cool. Have a good one.
See you next week.
Yep.
Bye.